It's perhaps fitting that the world in Twilight Princess is split between light and shadow, almost as if the developers knew that the game would divide the real world too. For some, Twilight Princess is the peak of the 3D Zelda games, but for others, it's a valley. And that makes reviewing Twilight Princess HD a little tricky, as it's potentially catering to 3 different groups of people. First are those who love the original and wonder if it's worth picking up again. Second, those who didn't care for the original but want to know the improvements make it worth trying again. And third, those who haven't played the original game at all. And I'm going to attempt to address all 3 groups in this review. Let's see how I do. But first, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. I wasn't exactly a big fan of the original Twilight Princess, for reasons I'll get into later. But, and this is a big but, I wasn't a big fan of the Wind Waker either. That is, until Wind Waker HD, which completely resolved my main issues with the game and ultimately won me over as a fan. And it's for that exact reason that I found myself oddly excited to try Twilight Princess again, this time hoping that the HD remake might prove to be similarly transformative. So was it? Well, I'll get to that soon enough. But for now, I want to address the remaster on its own merits, and whether it's a worthy upgrade to the original game. So let's not beat around the bush. It is. To me, this is undoubtedly the definitive version of Twilight Princess, taking everything fans loved about the original game and making it even better. And nowhere is that more evident than in the visuals, which trade in the blur and vastly uncovered lens for ultra crisp HD visuals. This game looks sharp, and that's partially due and thanks to the revamped textures across the board that truly look fantastic. I kid you not when I say there were times I would just stand there and stare at a wall. Yep, a wall. If you played the original game, you'll understand. Now, unfortunately, while the textures were redone, the low polygon character models and environments remain a relic of the past, and serve as a constant reminder that this is most definitely not a current generation game. And yet, despite its dated appearance, there are moments of true beauty throughout. Moments where I would stop in my tracks just to soak it all in. The vastness of Hyrule Field, looking out upon a winter wonderland from a high perch, or just watching the sunrise in the desert. These are moments where the game really is gorgeous, and the HD remake allows these moments to shine. Essentially, Twilight Princess HD looks like how you remember it, instead of the reality of how it actually appeared. And that's a very good thing. While I do wish the developers went a little further to modernize the visuals, the game holds up remarkably well on the whole. Beyond the graphics, the game's gameplay has also been tightened up in various ways. Like, do you remember the, some might say, laborious Tears of Light quests? They've been truncated from 16 to find down to 12. The interface has also been improved thanks to the gamepad, allowing you to check the map or swap out your inventory in real time, which is pretty convenient, though perhaps not quite as useful as it was in Wind Waker HD, since there aren't quite as many good moments to take your eyes off the screen. And like Wind Waker HD, you're also able to aim your weapons in first person using motion controls, which work pretty well and should appease those who are fans of the motion controls in the Wii version of the game. Oh, and if you are in fact coming from the Wii version, the new camera controls lifted from the GameCube version are a huge improvement. Other small tweaks made to the game include faster climbing and swimming animations, a touchscreen toggle for the wolf transformation, visible horsegrass icons on the map, a ghost lantern to help track down those pesky Poes. Oh, and do you remember that super annoying rupee message that appeared way too often before? Yeah, you'll see it this time too, but only once, then never again. Thank God. Now, I probably should mention that both the GameCube and the mirrored Wii versions of Twilight Princess are represented here, but unfortunately, the former is locked to normal mode, while the latter is locked to the more challenging hero mode, which is a little annoying if you wanted to mix and match a world with the difficulty. Now, in terms of entirely new content, you'll now find Miiverse stamps hidden in chests scattered across the world. And then there's Amiibo support, which allows you to scan in each of the Zelda series of Amiibo once per day for a quick health boost in the case of Zelda and Sheik, or an arrow refill for Link and Toon Link. But if you scan in Ganondorf, it'll actually make the game tougher by having you take double damage, which is a decent, if not ideal, workaround for the lack of a hero mode toggle for the GameCube version of the world. But annoyingly, you'll have to rescan Ganondorf every time you die or restart the game. And finally, there's a new Wolf Link Amiibo too, which unlocks a Cave of Shadows, an entirely optional challenge similar to the Cave of Ordeals, in which you'll battle through multiple floors of enemies as Wolf Link. Now, I won't spoil the reward for making it to the end, but I did find it to be pretty underwhelming given its benefit doesn't really solve a problem in the game, so rest assured that you won't be missing much if you don't have access to this particular amiibo. At any rate, unless you're an absolute purist, this is by far the ideal way to experience Twilight Princess. And that brings us back to the 3 groups of people that this game might cater to, so let's go through them one by one. Okay, so for those of you who haven't played Twilight Princess at all but are interested in trying, this is the version to get. The game is more accessible to new players than ever before while not looking half bad to boot. Now, for those who did play Twilight Princess before and loved it, the question really is then, is it worth picking up again? And I'm not even going to attempt to give a definitive answer because it's so subjective, but I will say this, there is very little actual new content in the game. So, if you weren't bothered by some of the issues with the original game that the HD remake fixes, there's not much new for you to experience here. But with that said, the game has also never looked better, but whether that's worth the price of admission is up to you. And finally, that takes us to Group 3. Those who played the original, and perhaps weren't too crazy about it like me. So about that, well...
Hey, listen!
Okay, so here's the thing about Twilight Princess HD. It's still Twilight Princess in HD. Yeah, that may sound redundant, but my point is this. While there are in fact numerous improvements made to the game, they don't prove to be transformative quite like Wind Waker HD was, or really anywhere close. Which of course is perfectly fine if you're a fan of the original game. But if you're not, well, I don't think this one's going to be changing any minds. Because, although Twilight Princess HD certainly smooths out some of the rough edges, it takes a lot more than just a little sandpaper to overcome my main problems with the original game. And my biggest problem with Twilight Princess, and now Twilight Princess HD, is a matter of pacing. It feels like there's a lot of near meaningless filler that connects the parts of the game that actually matter. Whether it's hunting down certain items, mindlessly battling countless groups of Twilight creatures, or following smelly trails across vast fields, there's a lot of repetitive busywork that I find to be terribly fun. Hell, even though there are fewer tiers of light to find now, I don't think I would have even noticed had I not known about that change going in. So yeah, those quests in particular still drag the game's pace down to a crawl for me. Then there are other annoyances too, that while not being deal breakers in and of themselves, start to add up. Such as how there's no way to speed up time, meaning you might be standing around for close to 10 minutes at a time while waiting for a particular time of day, such as if you're going Poe hunting. Or in another annoyance, how you can't transform from Human Link into Wolf Link while someone's watching. Now I do respect what the developers are going for here, but there are times when realism needs to be sacrificed for the sake of gameplay. After all, no one batted an eye when I would transform from a kid into a bulky Goron in front of their face in Majora's Mask. And then, of course, there's the game's infamous opening which drags on and on. This is the one thing that I've argued the developers needed to change, and they barely touched it. It was seriously a good 6 to 7 hours before I reached a point in the game that I actually started to enjoy. And make no mistake, there are in fact moments in Twilight Princess HD that I did genuinely enjoy. I love defending the carriage from attack while riding horseback, or following a mysterious spirit through town to learn its secret. Some of the temples are pretty great and featured interesting puzzles, like the gravity-defying walls of Death Mountain, or the wind-based puzzles of City in the Sky. Plus, I really just can't get enough of that double claw shot. And I have to say, the spinner item, though woefully underused, might be one of my favorite Zelda items ever. And while playing through the game again, I was also reminded of how charming it could be at times. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Telma. The problem here, for me at least, is that those moments of brilliance are surrounded and overshadowed by tedious quests that feel more like filler. Twilight Princess HD is a game that's epic in scale, but not in scope. There's a pretty solid 20-hour game in there that's wrapped up inside a nearly 40-hour one. And that's why, for me personally, I felt pretty mad about Twilight Princess HD as a whole. Which, keep in mind, is still an improvement over how I felt about the original game. But no matter how I feel about Twilight Princess HD itself, don't worry, Telma, I'll always love you. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and of course stay tuned to GameXplain for more reviews and other things gaming too.